Hero team, welcome back. Welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 24. Tips and tricks for all you PS5 and HOTAS users out there. How are you doing? It's me, Long John Silver. Thank you for joining me. If you are joining me, hit that like. Why not subscribe to the channel so you know when more of these are coming out. And let's have a look at RNAV approaches. Yes, I did a video on your G1000 Autopilot and how to set it up, how to use the electronic flight bag, and so on and so forth. And I said there would be an RNAV approaches coming up later, and this is it. Because it does require a few things, and it does require us to have a little chat about a few things, and I wanted to take my time to do it. So, first off, what is an RNAV approach? Well, an RNAV approach is a navigational approach that allows the autopilot to fly the plane into a landing position on the runway. It won't land the plane on the runway. You're going to want to take over before the plane gets to the runway, but it will get you a good deal of the way to the runway so that you don't need to faff about with appropriate glide slopes or glide paths, altitudes, etc, etc, etc. That will all be managed by the autopilot once you have programmed everything in correctly. So that's what we're going to have a look at today. It's different to an ILS approach. An ILS approach uses a localizer that you have to program into the nav console, into the nav frequencies, whereas an RNAV uses the inbuilt GPS, so you don't have to program a new code in. You just have to program the approach and the altitude in, at least until you pick up the LNAV and the glide path, and then the autopilot will do it for you. I find the RNAV easier and arguably less faffy than the ILS, but the ILS in the real world is more accurate in terms of getting your plane to the ground. So it's probably worthwhile knowing both. But for this one, we're going to be looking at the RNAV. Now, as is always with these things, because Microsoft Flight Simulator has a bunch of glitches and various other bugs and things in it, something has gone wrong with my electronic flight bag. So these are all the en route waypoints, and the altitudes, the speeds, and the timing are all missing, which is annoying. At least for the RNAV approach here via DOYAT, we have the altitudes, which is great. And we do know it's RNAV22 via DOYAT, but I don't know anything else about it, which is a bit of an annoyance. So we can get rid of that for now, and we can have a look over here. Now, the reality is that this is already in my flight plan. So this is my flight plan here. And if we take a little bit of a closer look at that, I want to have a look at a couple of things. Now, these were my en route waypoints here, and they disappear once you've passed your en route waypoints. And we're now flying to this waypoint here, which is Verney. Now, when the flight plan breaks like this, and this has here the RNAV GPS 22 LPV, this is my RNAV approach. So this is the last of the en route beacons, and this is now transitioning into approach. I would say that this is probably the right time to be looking at programming in your approach. You could fly to DOYAT, there's 95.5 nautical miles after Verney to DOYAT, where I will also have the time to select the approach and everything else. Noting that what this altitude is saying is that by the time we get to DOYAT, we want to be at 3,000 feet. Now, I will also note that Calpe, FAF, that's the final approach. So that is 2,200 feet. So when we are approaching the runway approach will be at 2,200 feet. That will be probably where you will pick up the glide path at 2,200 feet. Now, as I have said before, when we program the approaches in over here and we program the altitude in, when we pick up the approach, it will define the altitude anyway. And if the altitude of the approach is higher than the altitude I have set, it will follow the altitude of the approach. So it will be my intention to take the altitude at 2,200. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set that altitude here, and we're going to spin that all the way down to 2,000. 200. What this will do is this arms my vertical path. So I can arm that now because the vertical path will come in before we hit the approach mode. So once we set this and set the vertical path, we know that the plane will automatically start descending and we're not going to miss anything while we're faffing around. So there we go, 2200. We'll hit it on VNAV. You'll see the VNAV is on. You'll see the VPath is on. We are flying on GPS. So this is saying that it will wait until it sees the top of descent bug. And when the top of descent bug comes through, the VPath will set automatically and the plane will start descending to 2,200 feet, or whatever the approach mode says is the appropriate altitude to be at. So I will just probably, let's get rid of this for a second, and we'll speed up the approach, we'll speed up the simulator a little bit. Right, the simulator's rocking along at normal time, so we may as well be moving along towards Verney. So we're moving along towards Verney. We have our VPath set, so we're not going to miss the top of descent. We're not going to find ourselves suddenly scrambling to try and get down to the bottom. And what we want to do is we want to go and have a look and set our approaches. Now, one of the things I tried to explain badly, probably because I'm not very good at it, is this approach here on the chart. If we have a chart and we are coming in on runway 22, so we don't have an FAA chart. Do we have a Lido chart? So we don't even have a chart. So this is something that sometimes happens. So setting minimums isn't going to be possible. Here we are. RNAV, GPS, runway 22. So there we go. So we've found this. So we now need to look at these minimums and try and decipher these minimums. So like I've said, I'm not super great at it. So we're going to come in from Doyat, and this is going to be where our minimum is. This indicates that if you miss approach, you're going to be going there. Somewhere down here is the information that we need. So I just don't know. I think it's to do with the RNAV MDA. I think that's minimum distance of approach is I think that is 485 is our minimums. Am I right? 485. 485, 500, 801 a quarter, 801 and a half, 801. So 501 a quarter, 501 and a half. I think it's 500. Don't quote me on that, but let's assume that that's the case. Let's assume in our ignorance we know what we're doing, and we're going to do that. So we need to set our approach. So you'll find your approach in procedure. We don't want to activate it just yet. What we want to do is we want to go down here to the FMS knob. We're going to set to select approach. We're going to hit enter. And we're going to choose the right one. Now, we can see from our plan over in our corner that we're going to RNAV 22 LPV. So we're going to scroll over here, RNAV 22 LPV. We're going to hit enter. So we're coming in from Doyat. Vectors would be an approach which would require us to fly our own way in until we picked up a point. CSN is a different beacon that we aren't using. We're using the Doyat. So what we're going to do is we've already set all this. We're going to go in here and we're going to go with Doyat. We're not going to second guess ourselves. It has minimums. We don't know what those are, so we're just going to skip that. It says load or activate. Now, I don't want to activate it yet because we're not close enough yet. But what we're going to do is we're going to load it into the system. Now you'll see the system has had a look at things. Just double check nothing's changed. We're still on GPS. We're still on autopilot. We're still at 25,000. We're still on the VPath. It's now showing us the flight plan. It is now understands that this has been put in. We now have an active VNAV profile in here, which is great. This has just moved us down a little bit. We could just move slightly further up. Or we should be able to move slightly further up on this. Oh, there we go. So we're still heading to Verney. it's then going to take us to another location. So this wasn't originally in here. It is in here now. So this is Kilo Charlie Juliet Romeo, and that's 96.2 nautical miles. That's 6,735 feet. So this is a transition point. So what these usually do in these approaches with the RNAVs is it will bring us in and probably do a teardrop, so that we approach the runway in much the way that you would with a larger aircraft. So that's essentially the procedure to make sure everything is in the system. Everything is loaded in. We're happy that everything is in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to carry on until we get to probably KJCR. Actually, it'll be somewhere between Verney and KJCR, because that's where top of descent will be. So what I'll do is I'll skip forward and bring you in at top of descent, just to confirm that everything is working, and just so you can see how you manage descent. So I'll skip ahead and I'll bring you in just a tick. Right, here you can see this is top of descent. We are just reaching the top of descent now. So we're just gonna adjust the sim rate so we get across the top of descent. So you'll see that we are hitting the top of descent now, and we are descending. As you can see, we're descending over here. VPAT is now turned green, so we're still in GPS, still not autopilot. We're now descending, and this is telling me that we have an alternative altitude that we're going to, and it's 3,000, which is what I said to you it would be. I said it would be 3,000. It would be this one here for Doyat. And we've set this one because we don't have to do it. Now, we're going to get a little bit of a speed indication warning there. That's fine. That happens all the time. We just back it off a little bit. So if you are descending, do be aware that you can get occasional warnings and things and all the rest of it. It's not the end of the world. It will stop eventually. There is nothing in the red here. There's nothing going wrong. That's fine. We can now just ease it off a little bit, and we'll carry on with our descent. What you want to see here is this magenta line here. What this is saying is the plane wants to keep descending at around about 950, 1,000 to meet the target by the time that it gets there. So you want to make sure that you manage that. So there's a whole lot of little indicators that are going to appear here, and they all have functions, right? So you need to bear that in mind. So this is where we want to go to get this by the time we get there. This is suggesting that we're on track, which is great. V means that we are descending, which is awesome. So we're going where we're supposed to be going, and you can see that the airport is now ahead of us. You can see where Doyat is. You can see the little teardrop. So, and you can see here that this says BOD, which is bottom of descent. So we're going to come in here to KCJR, and then we're going to turn left. That's going to take us out to Doyat. We're going to loop around. We'll go around the outside of the teardrop and then come back in straight. We'll come in straight on the runway, and that will bring us in. These are the missed approach hold points at the other side of the runway. So that's what we're going to do. That's where we're going to be. That's what we're going to be at. So what I will do is, it's 53 nautical miles to Kilo Charlie Juliet Romeo, and I will skip ahead to there so you can see how we transition in from that point into the approaches, and then we'll follow it on through, and I'll show you when to activate approach mode so that the autopilot picks up the approach and takes you into the airport. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. Now, I want to bring you in because this happens. So you see up in the top there, it says cancel IFR via radio. And that's fine. Don't panic. It isn't going to delete any of the instructions that you've added to the approaches. What this is basically saying is this is handing over from the radio air traffic control people managing your flight. You've already got an approach. You're on approach. You are, I guess, within the domain of the airport or whatever the situation is, and you will carry on. It stops them pestering you and continually asking you for updates and to do this and do that and do everything else. So that's fine. So don't worry about it. It happens. Don't panic. If your approaches are loaded in, as ours are, we will carry on. It's another 25 nautical miles to Kilo Charlie Juliet Romeo, and we will be there soon. Right, so we've just arrived here, and you can see now we're going to affect this turn. So it's got us here. I've slowed us down quite a bit. So we're going to add a little bit of speed to the sim. So we're now turning on the outward bound leg. We're still descending, so we still haven't met. Remember I said bottom of descent was out here, where it is. So it's out here at bottom of descent. So it's now taking us to Doyat, which is over here, 3,000 feet. We're still descending, as we should be to get to 3,000 feet. Our GPS is lining up, so we're still lining up, and we're going to go out to Doyat. This is not the approach yet. This is preparing for the, well, this is not the approach to the runway. This is preparing for the approach runway, but this is the approach pattern. So we are now in the Doyat approach pattern. So we're going to head out, and we'll see probably more so here. I can zoom in on this eventually. We can come over here. Sorry about the flitting about, but it's the way the we can zoom in here, and that is probably a little bit better. And then we hit X again to make sure we're locked in. So we've locked in the what you call it, magnification, I guess is what you would call it. Zoom in, zoom out. So here you can see we are heading out past Calpe. Then we're going to go to Doyat. Then we're going to loop around. We're going to come back in towards Calpe. So I will let that just run its course, and I will bring you in when we are coming in past Doyat, which is when I'll be setting the approach mode. You can see that in the mission steps there, it says press 1 and R1 to announce final when ready to land. I'm not going to announce that we're ready to land until we are on approach from Doyat. So we've still got a few thousand feet to drop. We have the speed at 144. What I would probably recommend in terms of speed is when you are looping around the teardrop, that's the time to start dropping your speed again. And then when you come into Doyat, we'll talk about managing speed on approach, shall we? So I haven't even really looked out the window. That's what's out the window, but I haven't looked out the window. I've been flying purely on instruments. So this is fine, good weather, but I could equally be doing this in the clouds or the fog or the snow or the dark or anything. So I don't need to look out the window. I'm just managing everything from the RNAV approach on my G1000. So there you go. That's also one of the benefits of being able to do this, is you can fly whenever and wherever you like. So I will skip ahead until we're finishing out and in approach on Doyat, and I will bring you back in again. Right, hello, we are on approach Doyat. We went the other way around the teardrop, which is fine. So I probably forgot to say, at this stage, as we're approaching Doyat, we have gone in and we go to activate approach, and we hit enter to activate approach, and the approach is activated and we're approaching Doyat. So we're coming off the whole pattern, we're heading into Doyat. That is fine. I'll be massaging the sim rate a little bit. I've dropped the speed a touch. I'd like to get it down to about 100 when I'm here. We're going to just massage because we're coming in. Hopefully it doesn't stick us in the whole pattern, and it takes us off the hold pattern. Otherwise we'll have to manually duck off the hold pattern and move to Glidepath. Alternatively, what we can do is we can come over here, we can move not that, we can move that to yeah, no, we should be able to. Why can't we move down with Glidepath? Can we not activate flight plan? The flight plan's already activated. I would like you to go away. It's being annoying. Where's my flight plan over here? Right, let's do this instead. So it's got us in the whole pattern. So go to Calipe, hit direct to, hit enter, and that will take us to Calipe, we hope. Speed this up a little bit because we were slowed right down. There we go. So that will take us out of the whole pattern. We're still on the V path. We're still approaching on our approach. Now is the time to come up here and hit the approach mode. You can see that is on. We now have this information here. So what we have here is a couple little things. We have GP, which is glide path. It's glide slope if you are using ILS. The vertical path has been activated. So at this stage, I don't need to worry about anything. While we're waiting on this to come through, you can see that some things have popped in. You've got a G and you've got a purple diamond. The purple diamond is where we're going to pick up the glide path approach. So we are under the glide path. That is perfect. If for whatever reason you find that below the horizon indicator, then what that means is you're above the glide path. Now, the RNAV won't descend you to intersect the glide path. You would have to do that manually. So if for whatever reason you've missed your transitioning altitude, and your transitioning altitudes will help you, you see now the 2200 has come up. Your transitioning altitudes will help you make the glide path correctly without missing it. Pardon me. And you can see that that's gradually dropping towards us as we go forward. Admittedly, we're going forward a little bit slowly, so I have time to speak to you about this. You can see over here, I will let them know that we will be ready to land soon, that we have a top of descent. So we're going to start descending towards Calpe. At that point, I would suggest that we will have intersected the glide path. So let's speed up a little bit till we intersect the glide path. We'll make sure we're on it. There we are. So GPS, AP, GP. We are on glide path. Now then, here we go. This is where the descent needs to be at, around about there. This says we're on glide path. Now, I don't know if you can see here, but there's a little pink bug. This is the speed. This is the right speed that we want to be at. So we're going to manage that, and we're going to be careful that we don't end up. We could go a little bit quicker, it says. We're probably going a little bit slower than it would like. We could speed up a little bit. No, quite the opposite. We're going too fast. Sorry, because it's getting longer. It says, hey mate, you're going a little bit quick. So what we'll do is we'll put some flaps on. So we'll put some flaps on. That'll bring the speed down. This will get smaller. And that means that this is Y. We want to be aiming for Y at this stage. And you can see where the flight director is. So we've got to nurse the throttle a little bit just to get to there. So that's what we're going to be doing. So on approach, which is out there, on approach, what we're going to be doing here is now everything is set. All I am doing is I'm managing the throttle here with the flaps, etc, etc, etc. So we're still going a little bit, okay. We're going to be on glide path, which is going to be cool. I don't have to worry about any of that. So let's have a look outside, shall we? So we'll have a look outside. Out there in the distance is the runway. I can kind of see it. I don't know if this is going to make it any easier to see, but it is directly ahead of us. So I can see that the runway is more or less where my cursor is, directly ahead of us. We'll zoom in a little bit here so we can keep an eye on things. Our speed is fine. We could drop it a little bit, but our speed is fine. It's around about 100, it says is okay. So we're going to carry on. I'm going to speed the sim up a little bit, see if we can get forward a little bit more. And we'll just manage a few things. So I'm going to do this while adjusting the sim stuff, because, but normally I wouldn't necessarily recommend this. You can do, but there you go. So that blue bug that was coming up was the one I set for altitude. But that doesn't now matter anymore, and it's being superseded by the glide path. So we're on glide path, so that's just going to go cruising past as the plane keeps us in on glide path. You can probably now see the runway a little bit clearer out there. I don't see any PAPI lights just yet. I think I can see them to the left of the runway. It looks like two whites. I can't see the reds. It's hard to say. We're still 5 nautical miles out. I'm not steering. I have noticed with the RNAV approaches that the plane does this kind of wallowing from side to side. It's nothing to worry about too much. It's going to do this a little bit. So here we go. It's a little wallow, a little bit of wallow, a little bit of wallow, a little bit of wallow. Now then, we're coming in, we're coming in, we're coming in. We're now just coming up like a couple of nautical miles out from the runway. So I think at this point, I'm going to slow down a little bit more because I'm not very good at landings. So I'm going to drop the speed a little bit. Which it's going to say you don't have to do that. It's going to say, well, you could be going a little bit faster. Yeah, I'm sure I could. R is kind of the runway landing speed. So you'll see there's an R here on my tape as my R comes up. And that's what I'm going to be aiming for, if you don't mind, at this distance. Also, over here, if we have a look at flaps, flaps need to be set to landing. So we can move that down to landing. So that's all fine. The trim is automatically adjusted by the aircraft. So that's perfectly fine. The plane's doing a few adjustments and things. We'll just monitor this till we get to R, which is around about 70 knots. 70 knots is a nice comfortable landings. There we go. We're rocking along around about 70 knots. We can see the PAPI lights. Looks to me like 2 white, 2 red. We're coming in fine. It's got a little bit of a wallow. I'm going to keep an eye on it, but otherwise the sim rate is back to normal speed. We've got 2 white, 2 red. We're still all good. We're still on Glidepath. We're still rocking around 70 knots, which is fine. Like I said, we've got this slight wallow. We're good on approach. PAPI lights will start changing to more reds because we are coming in pretty close. At this point, I'm going to take over. And I'm just going to try and guide us in. I'm going to try and probably level us off a little bit from here. Try and keep coming down. Dropping the throttle a little. Try not to stall. No, gonna stall. Yeah, okay. Put it into reverse thrust. Put the brakes on. Make sure we don't crash anything important. Bit of an abrupt landing, but we can do it. And there we are. We are down, and I'm going to be going through here to get to my hold point. And that is that. Right, so there you are. That is GNAV approaches, everybody. So, I mean, I hope that helps. Once you nail these, then you will find some of the landings on these things a lot easier. I would say that what you will probably find with the other autopilots is all of the same things apply. It's really just finding them where they are, really. That's the key. The key is where you're looking. Once you understand how, once you understand how to create the approach, when to create the approach, when to put the approach mode on, when to transition, how to, like use direct to get out of the hold pattern, for example, or anything like that. Once you've troubleshooted a few of those little things, the RNAV approaches will take quite a bit of the stress out of the landing from some of these other missions, right? Some of these missions can be a little bit tricky, and some of the landings can be a little bit tricky. And look, you saw my landing. I'm not perfect. I'm still not perfect. I am still working on landings. But there you go. What can you do? So hopefully that should be it. And you've seen there that really I'm only looking out the window for the last approach. You can pretty much fly, like I said, once you figure this out, this is instrument flying. So you can fly in the dark, you can fly whenever. You don't have to change the time of day, you don't have to worry about missions. You do have to make sure that RNAV approaches are available on the mission. They aren't always on every mission. And I mean that, like, you know, from even specialization. Not every medevac mission has an RNAV approach. There are missions that are just totally VFR approaches, and there isn't an RNAV, and there isn't an ILS. I'm not sure why. Don't know the ins and outs of that for RNAV perspective. I would have thought it should have been taken from the plane, but who knows? So there you go. If you get stuck, feel free to drop a comment or message me from the channel or whatever you like. It is a bit clunky to get your head around, but once you do get your head around it and you do figure out how to do it, it will make completing some of these longer missions so much easier and so much more straightforward, and arguably so much more enjoyable. Certainly I find them considerably more enjoyable than I used to when they used to stress me out. So, I hope this helps. It has helped me. If it does help you, do click that like button. Do subscribe to the channel so you know when the next of my tips and tricks videos will be coming out. And I will see you all again for another one real soon, shall I? Ta-ta for now.